jungle room, the vines hang deep. Breeze and raindrops as the emerald boa slither. Face to face they draw their guests in close. Their calm invites us to come hither. Every corner built for curious mind. A jungle playground, nature design. Build them homes, let instincts flow. Babies born, tiny lives begin to grow.
Greetings and welcome to the Happy Basins podcast here on the Untamed and Unhinged Reptile podcast channel on YouTube. I'm Amy Benzie and I am here tonight with Rain from Unscripted. You guys, Rain has been in the animal game since childhood and has gone on to study animal biology and genetics, giving him quite a name in the animal community. Not just reptiles, but he's got a big name with dogs. And I don't know what else. We might find out more tonight. And he's not just a rock star in the animal world, but also in cannabis growing as well as culinary arts. So we're going to have fun getting all kinds of interesting stories out of Rain tonight, aren't we, Rain?
For sure, of course.
Well, when Rain and I started talking before I ever even took my first trip to the jungle, and that was back in 2020.
Right.
And since then, I've gone 11 times. And he was just saying it was ironic that he was the very first person who ever invited me to be on his podcast. And now here he is on our podcast. So
yes,
thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here. It was I remember that you had a channel, but like I said, I lose my pages. So I remember that I was seeing you had a channel, and I actually think I subscribed to it on one of my other YouTubes. And then when me and Chris were talking after I did the first podcast on the network, he was like, "Yeah, and Amy." I was like, "Well, okay, that's right. All right, Amy has a show." And he was like, "Yeah, I want to put you on Amy's show." So I was like, "No, that's cool. That's perfect. We can definitely do that."
Well, I sure had fun researching you. You're pretty incognito for the most part.
Yeah. I've been around a long time. And so when you've been around and you are like, when you really deep dive into stuff and you live it every day, you tend to find out, like, how can I say it? It's like, sometimes it's just better to let people find out what you're doing rather than this to show them. And then you can't show everybody everything that you're doing. You know, that's another thing. And social media, like, it's got its ups and downs. And one of the downsides is, like, you know, everybody wants to be like the top dog. So I want to try to outdo this person. And the only way I can do that is to, like, troll you and, you know, try to dig up dirt. And I'm just like, bro, like, I thought we were here for animals. That's why I'm here. So, yeah, if it's not about animals, like, I don't even like, or animals, culinary, cannabis, or, you know, you want to take some trips, do some research, you need some consulting. I do credit repair. Your credit's messed up, I can help you. You want to buy a house with very little to no money, I can help you do that stuff. But anything outside of that, I don't deal with it. I don't know. I guess I just come from a different time, and I never thought, you know, when you think from like 85 to 88 to 95, like, that you're going to be where you are right now on a live podcast, like on the internet. Like, no.
Yeah. What was internet? We didn't even,
right.
We got our first computers when I was in 6th grade at our elementary school.
Right. And
in
then
the library.
You're a teacher, or do you still teach, or do you not teach anymore?
I left my teaching job in 2021.
Okay.
When I started going more trips to the jungle. Gotcha. I had to kind of make a choice.
No, for sure. That makes sense. Like, especially when you're like, for I don't know how long you taught, but I'm sure it was a good while. So when you do something like that, you understand that when you want to move to something, another project or a program, then you're gonna have to, you know, make a decision. But, because I used to be a teacher and all my aunts were teachers. So, I grew up in a household where like education was the number one. I remember like one of my first conversations we had, and I was texting you and I sent something with like some bad grammar and you were like, you weren't having it. Like, I was like, is she serious right now?
I'm over that now. I try my best not to still do that.
So, but no, that's fun. But no, I mean, you can't be mad at that though. We need more of that. Like kids today, a lot of them don't even know how to read or write. So, but I do want to commend you because you're not a herpetologist. You're not a scientist. You're someone who really, saw what they wanted and was like, and that's what, and I can appreciate it because I did the same thing and was like, I'm gonna look at my finances. I'm gonna look at my schedule. I'm gonna look at my career. I'm gonna look at the people around me, and I'm gonna see how I can take this to the next level and incorporate what I can and what I can't. So, like, and that's a hard thing to do, especially in another country. It's not like you went to a neighboring state to study reptiles over there. You went south of the equator because you started in Suriname, right?
My very first trip was Peru. Suriname was my third trip.
Okay, cool. And then I don't know, dude. I'm more excited to be talking to you finally than probably. So no, you really did your thing because we don't see a lot of that anymore. So
yeah, I'm definitely excited about the group of us, the huge family online that I didn't know existed when I first started. And that's the family that actually wants to provide enrichment and like real habitats and try to make the animals happy. Because when I first started, it was just about, you need to keep it in a small cage. Don't touch it. Don't look at it. Don't take a picture of it.
Right. No, I remember you telling me and it kind of sucks that when you came in that for anybody that you have to come into that. And especially when it's like, I never logically stuff like that never made sense to me, especially because I had traveled young and I'd always been like wanting to be like super invested into animals. So I'm like, how are you telling me that I got to keep it like in the smallest thing? But I saw this thing over in this country and it was like in the jungle. So it doesn't really make sense to me. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense to me. And, that's kind of why I'm like the favorite with some people. And then I'm not the favorite with other people. Because,
right.
Like, I'm kind of like an industry killer in the way. Like you're not going to convince me that a nocturnal animal eats birds as a main part of its diet. I'm not stupid. So if, if you want to, it's like, I just did a podcast Sunday, right? And, you have these guys who want to like sell you a purebred mutt, if that makes sense. But they don't want to tell you that until you catch them. And then they have this brilliant excuse like, oh, well, it's because of this. And like, bro, just say that you bought dogs and they were mutts and you didn't know it and you want to make your money back, So it's kind of the same thing like in the reptile world. I learned that like especially when you're talking about like localities and things like that, like half the time you're not even getting what you say. And I'm pretty sure when you got out there and you saw some things and you're like, man, they told me that they only do this. And then you saw the complete opposite in the wild. And I know because I saw some of your accounts where you were showing that. And I'm just like, you see, that's what happens when you kind of listen to people who've never been there or done that. It's like me trying to take orders from a chef that's never run a restaurant. Like, bro, you better go sit down somewhere. Like, you know what I mean? So,
yes.
Some people are better on paper than they are in the field. So, yeah, I guess that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it really makes a big difference getting that field experience. And, that was the big thing with me wanting to go to the jungle. Besides that, I felt so led to go, but then I just wanted to see for myself. So I didn't have to keep listening to all of these things and I could, have my own experience and background. And I developed that. And yes, I'm a mathematics major. All of my degrees are mathematics and my PhD is analytics. So I have really good research skills. You know, maybe my mathematics doesn't transfer over to herpetology, but you know, you've transferred culinary arts and cannabis growing like in ways that people know. So
Right.
I'm sure mathematics can translate in all kinds of, you know, ways, but in
For
data
sure. I
keeping,
mean,
but
I
the
need
research
to know,
aspect.
well, even to do what you did in your room, you know, without mathematics, you don't have anywhere to live. So, you know, I need mathematics to do all, and like all this stuff, like all the wooden stuff in here that you see is all, I built all this stuff from scrap wood. So, you know, it's all like pieces. You'll see like breaks where I filled it and it's got like bins, but it's all scrap wood. But I learned, you know, it's not always what's on the outside that matters. Sometimes it's just about what's on the inside. And, you know, that's the most important thing for the animal that lives in there. But yeah, mathematics is extreme. I mean, everything is numbers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, everything is numbers at the end of the day. So even the fake money they give you, it's still numbers. You still got to count it. So, but it is. You know, I've done a lot of podcasts for someone who doesn't want to do podcasts. Quite a lot. I have a lot of stuff out there, and what I've
That's
learned.
all I was able to find on you. Whereas the podcasts from way back, lots of podcasts.
Yeah,
but there was nothing like written. So I had to actually go through transcripts to get information about you. So
yeah,
I thought, man, this guy.
I was going to text you because I still have your number, but I was like, I don't know if I want to spoil it. So, yeah. But no, I just, like, for me, I'm pretty direct. So if you want to know something, like, no one, it's like, I kind of feel like when you think about like real estate agents, I'm not like knocking anyone who does real estate. I'm just saying the point I'm making is nobody is going to tell you better about me than me. It's like you get a real estate agent, but they don't even know anything about your house. You know what I mean? So I don't think a real estate agent could sell my house better than I could, because she's just going to walk you in here and like make up a bunch of stuff and be like, oh, yes. And then they did this and that. Like, you don't even know why I did that. Shut up. You know what I mean? Like, but that's their job. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, I think for everybody, a lot of people are using social media to kind of like, I don't know, maybe expand on themselves. And so they're like getting things and then going to social media, and like everything that I have and that I'm doing, like I brought with me. Like I didn't get anything to come here. You know, it's the same thing like with you. I remember when I first saw your room and I was amazed and I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. Like I thought about something similar to that. And then I remember how you told me how they trashed you. And I was like, I want to apologize for that, because, most of these guys don't know what they think that they do. So something like that, like what you did, is I'm the same way. And I've seen people do that same kind of thing for other animals. And I think that I know that we need to see more of it, and less of the, like, for instance, like Nido's a problem, but you have a group of people who like just act like it doesn't exist. Inbreeding is a problem. And I know, like, I always sound like a broken record when I talk about these things, but these are problems that exist. And then people don't say anything, or they don't want to say anything until they get that animal that's messed up that they paid a lot of money for. Like, I feel like since 1920, we should be way further than we are. Like, how come no one has attempted, or is, at least I know, I have friends who are herpetologists. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not active in any way with my genetics degree, like formally, like in any program or anything like that. So, but I have friends who are, you know what I mean? And I talk to them all the time, and conversations are very different. And I've asked them questions and they're like, yeah, well, nobody knows. They're still trying to figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, but you would think it's been 100 years of keeping. No one's thought to like try to take semen samples from male snakes to do like AIs on animals. And I'm not necessarily saying like that may be a good or bad thing, but it's just the thought process to get you to the next level of thinking. Or it's like the misting systems. Like, people are like, oh, the misting systems are great, they're automatic, and they are, but they're still flawed. And the biggest flaw is the bubbler doesn't, I have one right here. It doesn't bubble. It doesn't work until the timer goes off. So the water is stagnant in there over time. All of my water basins and all of my phylos, my monitor, my cobras, my bush vipers, like everything that has a water basin has a working air stone that pumps water. So I only change the water if it's actually dirty or when it gets low, or maybe about every 7 to 8 days. Because I hate changing. If not, I'm going to change water every day. And that messes with the water bill. Like, I will show you a better way to do things because I've been doing it for so long. But then people take what I do as like, oh, you're trying to like maybe put people out of business, or you're like, if I say don't buy calcium, make your own, because that's what I do. But I'm just trying to help you save money. Or I say build your own enclosures. Don't buy from them. It's not a stab. It's just me being me. If I can help you save money, then I will. And that's what I do. You know, I'm a consultant. That's my job. But everybody doesn't see it that way. Or when I talk about like the over usage of calcium in the reptile community, nobody wants to hear that. Well, they're your animals, man, I guess. You paid all that money. Amy, you know better than probably anybody in here listening about my struggle with the insurance, because we talked about it numerous times. And I'm like, well, all right, bro, we don't have insurance on none of this stuff. So if you're going to play that game and you're going to follow the industry standards, then you deal with the industry problems. So, you know, that's what it is. But when I say stuff like, oh, you can make your own this or make your own that, or maybe you should try a grow tent or use that, if people are like, bro, like, don't tell people to do that. Like, I literally have people come in my inbox and like tell me to stop importing specific animals until they can get the animals bred. Because these guys are so gun-ho about their title and their ego. And it's definitely a male thing, because this is a predominantly male-run trade. It's just what it is. You know what I mean? And so even as a male, I have to deal with that. And that's stupid, because I'm a grown man and you don't pay my bills, my mortgages, or none of that stuff. But to tell somebody that when it should be like, yo, bro, like, where are you getting those from? I've got some information that we can trade. But that doesn't happen. But then they'll say a podcast and act like they are like so nice and so this and so that. And I'm just like, man, bro. Like, and then here I come. And I'm just all in your face, like, bro, he's a fraud. He's this, he's that, he's that. So, like, my channels don't last very long because of that. But I just want people to do the best by the animals. That's all.
And, you know, I always like to say, because I have talked a lot about the negativity from basically the old schoolers. But I really take a lot of pleasure in influencing the new keepers, you know, into seeing that these animals think and all stuff. But those old schoolers that are basically mostly the ones who are my particular, I'll say, haters, you know, people who don't agree with the handling and the large enclosures and the free roam. Yeah. But I always have to give them credit because, you know, without their trial and error and losing so many animals, they found the regulation for the parameters for the keeping, you know, the humidity and habitat, the needs. But like you said, golly, it's been how many decades now? It's time to progress into enrichment, you know, now that we have that other stuff down pat. So thanks all those guys for getting us to this point. But we're moving on and there's no reason to hate us for it.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, but you would think logically, like, as a person, like, who keeps animals, like, why would you not want to provide the best space? Like, and then when you go and you see things for yourself, especially if it's a species that you're particularly interested in and you keep, like I have and like you have and like other people have, you tend to, then when you start thinking, and Eddie, Father Blue is a perfect example of what happened. And he went through some of the same trash.
And who is that?
Eddie, Father Blue with the blue tree monitors. You know, he went to Indonesia to study the blue tree. I mean, and he's still, you know, he bought a whole boat and he's working on this boat to sail from Florida to Batanta. and serious. Like that's I love to see that. And but he got trashed for wanting to give his monitors more space. But he's like, bro, I just went over there and they got a whole island, and you're telling me, and they told him like some of the same things I told you. Well, it's not going to work. You're never going to get them to breed, and da 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 da. Well, here's some things. Like, one, it did work. He did get them to breed, and then they didn't have anything to say. But here's my question. How do you know I want to breed? Why is it that the first thing when someone sees you, like they see you, like if I say, oh, I have a pair of green tree monitors in here, I don't. There's only one, but it's a 6x2x2. So if I were to have two in here, I could tell you someone in the tree monitor world would be like, oh my God, that's too small. You're never going to get them to breed in there. I'm like, first of all, I would agree that might be too small for two adult monitors, but two smaller ones, fine. But who said that I had any intent on breeding? Why is that the first thing? Like, how come no one, how come when I go to people's pages, I don't see like healthy, like selling, they don't say like health guarantee or health certificate? Or how come your vet, like I saw someone in the comments said like, how come someone doesn't, the vets don't offer insurance or health certificates? Because they do types of testing. Obviously, they do NITO tests. There's a couple other tests that they do. So this stuff is available, but at the same time, we don't push it either. We got to push it. That's the biggest thing. It's like we have to push it. But if you have backdraw or the wrong people who you may think are the right people are telling you, no, that's not a good idea, or because they don't understand stuff like the registry. Like a lot of people didn't understand that when I was talking about that. They automatically are like the government. And I'm like, oh, it's not the government. It's just a way to track. It's a way to it's a way to set a standard for yourself and what you're doing. And to go back and see and show people like, yo, bro, like, 10 years ago, like all these animals, like these were mine, and they contributed to the gene pool of the Amazon basin tree boas today that you see in your zoo in this country. How many people are saying that? Because people are like, conservation, you can't, there's no animal on earth that you are selling on Morph Market for conservation. Nobody goes to Morph Market to buy animals for conservation because you get animals for free for conservation. So I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. And then you think about with me, with the cooking, it's so weird because I'm actually like, I love animals, but then I like to eat animals. And I think a lot of people do. But I'm like I live with them. And then there's animals that I have kept that have showed up in my kitchen, like in kitchens that I've run, that I've had to break down.
I've eaten animals that I have as pets, my beloved, beautiful pets. I've eaten their species out there.
Yeah, and when you think about it, like I never thought about that until recently. I did a podcast with someone, and I was
not emeralds. I just want to say I've never eaten an emerald. Not emerald. Go on.
It's interesting, like, and I thought about that, like where I'm like breaking this animal down, and I'm like, man, bro, I used to keep one of these, like, because I've kept snakes, but I've also eaten them. You know what I mean? Like, it's the animal world and the culinary world it's a fine line. You throw cannabis in there, and yeah, it's
mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, Amy, I do have a question. When you were in Suriname, so I have a snake here, right? That I would love to get more. It's highly unlikely that I will. I want to say it's a far chance that I will. But did you see any snail eaters when you were down there? The Cybin nebulatus, the cloudy snail eaters?
Not that I know of. If I saw a picture of it, I might know.
I wish I could pull her out. She's probably under the water dish. Because they're like super common in Central and South America, but you don't see them in the pet trade because nobody wants to deal with snails.
Well, the thing with us, and I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you for recognizing my sweet Jaja. And yes, it was iguana that I ate out there. And a couple times. But the snakes, for example, I thought rainbow boas were arboreal because I'm only looking in the trees.
Right.
So the only time I'm going to find a rainbow boa is if it's in the trees. And I just don't search for other animals. I did a couple of guests I had. Of course, Dave Kaufman wanted to find the anaconda and the red tail or the boa constrictor. And so at that time we started looking, and that's when I realized we can find anaconda every single time we go. They're so easy to find. I just never looked for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're in the right areas, even in certain places, like even when I was in Indonesia, like the retic population out there is crazy. Like if you're in the right places, like, and it's so funny how you see people keeping them like as terrestrial snakes, but they're like, you want to see the retics? And they just point up in the trees and you'll see like 4 or 5 of them just coiled up on the branches in the trees of all different sizes. And I'm like, bro, like back where I'm from, they keep them in like cages that are like this wide and like very long with like just newspaper and like a dish that big. Those are the experts. But anyway. So yeah, for sure. Well, the snail eater is nocturnal. So if you were out, you probably did see some. Like they're super common, really skinny, odd looking, bland snakes. They're really like nothing special, nothing like eye catching. I just like them. It took me on a snail journey that I wasn't expecting to really be this involved in snails and slugs.
Oh yes. Those ones with the great big eyes. I have a lot of pictures with those.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm very in. I have some Asian stuff coming in, hopefully next month, but I haven't been able to get any more of the Central or South American stuff.
But I did actually. The pictures I have with those came from Peru and Colombia, I want to say.
Okay.
So I have not seen one in Suriname.
Gotcha. This one's from Suriname. The one that I have is from Suriname. I think that's where everything is coming from. I don't think anyone else is allowing export. I don't think.
Right. Suriname and Guyana allow a lot of export.
Guyana, right. Okay. So.
But of course, animals make it
through
there that didn't actually get caught there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's another problem they have with me. I'm like, well, I'll say something. I'm like, bro, if you don't know that those animals, like, come on, bro. It says wild caught, but it came here as farm bred. Like, come on, bro. If you don't know how that, I shouldn't have to explain that to you. It's easier to catch them than it is to breed them for them. So, and I don't, Amy, I know you're not, and I have mixed feelings on it. And I know I've seen you and I've seen other people, and I know people that have gone out and that have bought animals from trappers and gone and released them. And I have no issue with that. I also have no issue with export, but I do have issues with just the way that it happens. You know what I mean? And I think the reason why we're seeing a lot of that is dying off is because of how it's been happening. Like, I don't know, for some reason, like the reptile community just doesn't want any kind of regulations like whatsoever. And it's crazy to me, like even still, like I said, it's been 100 years, 1920. It's been 105 years of keeping reptiles in the States. And, when you were saying about some of the older people and that attitude, that is definitely a part of why we're stagnant. And when you think about it, like I said, 105 years, because I come into it in 88. And that was like 2 or 3 years after captive breeding kind of set in. And I remember it flipped. And I was saying this on the other podcast. It flipped. Like the keeping then was kind of how it is now, but somewhere in the middle, like the container came in and everything just flipped. And I saw an abundance of keepers come in, or whatever people want to call themselves, keepers, collectors, handlers. But then I saw like the passion die down, and it just became like a thing to do because it became cheaper. You didn't have to wait 6 months to get something like this.
You could make money faster.
Well, right, for sure. And that was, one of the attitudes that is definitely carried over, is that stagnant where it's like, I'll talk to you up until the point you start thinking on your own. And it's kind of,
that's exactly how it is. They will keep talking to you until you don't take their advice.
And it's not like I love talking to people, and it's been very hard lately. And that's why I really was happy that I would get to come on here and talk to you, because I was telling my producer on my show, like, bro, I don't even know how much longer I can do this because I'm running out of people to talk to. Like, you know, I got guys who are talking about there are no such thing as a purebred animal or purity because they want to scam you, wanting to debate me. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is ridiculous, bro. Like, are you serious? Are they paying you? Ashton Kutcher, please come out. You know what I mean? Like, no, there's no way that we can't even have a debate about that. I just want to talk to people about animals. Like, I don't want to argue. Like, and that's why, like, I almost started interviewing you when we first started talking here, because I was so happy. Like, I've been waiting to talk to you for so long because I don't get to talk. Nobody really does research on their own. They go to YouTube, and I'm not saying you can't get stuff from YouTube, but everybody's got a channel. Like, it would make more sense for me to sit down and talk to you 11 trips in than maybe somebody who has been keeping Amazon Basins for 10 years in captivity.
Both have their value, you know,
sure.
And that's one of the things I always say, I wish we could normalize is, wow, that's working for you, and gather information from each other. Collaboration is power. And we unfortunately run into a lot of folks with great valuable information, but they're not willing to share it unless you're going to do everything they say.
Right. Yeah. You know, I like I said, I remember getting in trouble over these animals, right? And that trouble got me stuck in a classroom at the Botanical Gardens.
Is this going to be the story from your little kid?
Well, yeah, I was there for a summer. And
can you just tell us about starting off that and putting snakes in your pocket? That's what I imagined.
So yeah, they're the Botanical Gardens in Southeast DC. If anybody's been to, I know Doug knows exactly where I'm talking about. Shout out to Doug. That's my co-producer and my aquatics guy. You know, it's a fenced in property, like barbed wire, like, you know, like signs, like, you know, do not take animals, da, 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 da. And it's set up like city blocks. So you know how you have the buildings, and then you have your sidewalks, and then you have your streets. So the buildings are going to be the ponds, and obviously the streets are going to be the walkways. So you just imagine all those square, like a giant city, but it's all ponds. And then they have this building where you go in, and it's like the learning center, right? And so I remember the first time I went there, and I was like, oh my God, like automatically, I'm like, the next time I come back here, I'm bringing like 5 pillowcases, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be ready. You know what I mean? So like, I walked around that place like 5 times, like learning, like every, like,
scoping.
I mean, and look,
or casing it out.
I didn't even realize, like, dude, there were copperheads there. There were water snakes. There were bullfrogs, leopard frogs, garters. There was all kind of stuff there. And I said, this is Southeast DC. Like, this is like back then. This is like when DC was like, yeah, it was bad. So, first trip, you know, normal. You know, second trip, pillowcase. You know, they're like, yeah, all right, we're going to Botanical Gardens. I'm looking at my cousin, like, yo, you got a pillowcase? Like, what do you need a pillowcase for? I'm like, I'm gonna try to catch something when we go out there. And he's like, you don't want a jar? I was like, no, man, because I'm gonna get in trouble. You're not supposed to take stuff. And he's like, all right. So he goes, he gets me a pillowcase, and so we get in the car and we go. And we get there and we're walking around, and I'm like, you know, like, because I'm a little guy now, kind of. I'm like short, little, not even really. I've lost some weight, but I was tiny, and so I could easily like disappear in a crowd on purpose. So you know, we go on the weekends, and there'd be a lot of people there, and you know, first chance I get, I'm gone. You know, like, you know, I've only got like, I suppose 10, 15 minutes in my head, so I'm walking around trying to catch whatever. It doesn't even matter what I catch. You know, it doesn't even matter. And as long as I can get something. And so I'm like, This is really a little embarrassing. I don't ever think I've told this story.
Oh, yay.
So like I come to this opening, and then there are these two giant ponds, and it's like offset from everything else. And I'm like, oh man, and like nobody can really see you there. So I go back in there, right? And then there's all these bullfrogs. You can hear them, and they're honking. And I really want a snake though, because I'm snake crazy. So I'm creeping up. I got my bag and everything, and I'm creeping up. And so like I go in, and I'm like right on the edge, and then like the frog is right there, and there's frogs, and there's like turtles out on the log, and I'm looking, and I'm like, well, I can't get in the water because then they'll know what I was doing. And so I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna grab one of these frogs, I'm gonna throw it in the bag, and I'm gonna put it under my shirt, and I'm gonna go back with the group. So I go to grab the frog, and my cousin comes up, but I don't even hear him. And he's like, what are you doing? And I slid right into the pond. So now it's over. Not getting anything, come out. And he's like, oh man, you look like Swamp Thing. Because I come out and there's like seaweed all over me. He's like, oh bro, you're going to get a whooping. And I'm like, and I am a little nervous. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So we go back out, and immediately they see me, and they're like, what happened? In so many words. And I was like, man, I was just running around, being dumb, and I slipped and I fell in one of the ponds. And they're like, obviously, first of all, you should have never ran off. That's the soft version.
Right.
So, this is a black woman we're talking about here. So
yeah, plus moms back then weren't the same soft moms that we have.
Well, this was my aunt, and me and her didn't really get along. So it wasn't a fun conversation.
It wasn't a, oh sweetie, let's get cleaned up thing.
I was basically just being talked at. So the next time, me and my cousin, we went by ourselves, and I was able to catch a water snake. And then the third time is when I actually got caught by the one of the curators there, and they're like, So let's see. There was 3 times that I got caught. I got to think. I've been smoking a little bit, so forgive me. There was 3 times that I got caught. So the third time is when they offered me like, hey, why don't you come teach this class? And so
that's incredible.
So that I wouldn't get in trouble. I'm like, anything so that I won't die.
So after getting busted catching animals out in the field, they asked you to just come and teach people about them.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, we don't really know much about it. Like, we just work here. You know what I mean? Like, we just come here, and then we got books, and they tell us, like, refer to the book. And they're like, you're always out here, like, we hear you talking to your cousin, you're chasing stuff down, no matter how many times we tell you not to. So, yeah. And so I was like, all right, well, then I guess I'll give you this water snake back. You didn't know I had. So, no, it was fun, though. It was like the first time it was like super nervous because I was like 13. And like these people were 2 to 3 times my age. So yeah. I was really nervous, but then like, I just kind of like, I just started talking about snakes, bro. And it just went from there. And then it got to the point where we would do like walkthroughs of the Botanical Gardens, and you'd see like this little black kid or these older white people walking them through.
That's pretty cool. Did your mom and your aunt get to see that?
Yeah, one of my aunts, she's like, yeah, the ancestors are proud. So no, it was funny. I'm mixed, by the way, people. So just so you know, if people are like, I'm sure some of my haters are out there watching. They're just not saying anything. So, Jordan, if you're out there, I love you, baby. If you need some money for your nails, you message me, let me know.
Yeah, really. Being black or white or anything, leading those people around at that age, but especially being a minority in the area is even, a more impressive feeling. And I'm sure it was I'm sure it was a good influence for the older white people too, who weren't used to seeing a young Black kid, being so intelligent.
DC though, Amy, they know us. It's DC. That's Chocolate City. They know us.
Mm-hmm.
DC. No. That's no. See, honestly, that's the brilliant thing about DC. Like New York is kind of like that too, but New York is a lot faster pace. And not that DC is slow, but it's slower. But DC is very integrated. And I went to private schools, so I like my group was like, Black, white, Latino, Asian, but these are all kids that not all of us, but a lot of us come from wealthy families. Not all of us, and some were there because they were smart and they had scholarships and they deserved to be there. And then some of those kids were white as well. But the one thing I've always liked about DC and New York, and maybe it's just the East Coast, and I have seen it on the West Coast as well, is like everybody speaks the lingo, whether you're rich, poor, Black, white, green, yellow, fat, short, gay, straight. Everybody speaks the lingo in the DMV. And so like my reptile crew, bro, they were Black, they were white, but it was different, bro. We were getting stuff and we were trading it. Like I was the only one who was like, man, I'm trying to get overseas and get more of this stuff. And, I do want to make some money. But I do want to get stuff for my friends as well and stuff for me. But this stuff costs. So how am I going to get money to do this stuff? And, then my brother was like, you could sell this stuff right here. And I'm like, oh, yeah. so like odd jobs. Like, but don't get me wrong, bro. Like I was 11 years old. Me and my cousin, we were call agents for Allstate Insurance. You know what I mean? Like cold calling, baby. No leads, all right? Real deal, no leads. Me, all three of us in that office, man. All three of us in that office clowning around. Four of us, actually, now that I think about it. Clowning around at 11 and 12 years old working for Allstate Insurance in Northwest DC, right across from the Fox building where they film, what's that? I can't think of it. Unsolved Mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
Unsolved Mysteries. Yeah, I
used to watch that.
Walking past that building, like, or sat there on their stoop and rolled my. But no, I love DC. DC, dude, because like there was so much wildlife out there as well, and then the ocean is right there. And because my family did, they did have money. And I was in private schools, I did have advantages like that some other people didn't have. But most of the people that I grew up with kind of were on the same level. So, but my other cousins and things like that who lived in other places, like it's like black and white, like they don't even like me, and I don't, it's just not, there's no connection there.
Did your parents buy you a car when you were 16? That was always the other level in my world.
No, what's so funny? I've only recently started buying cars because one, I've only really ever lived in cities or gone places where I don't need a car because I'm not a fan of cars. So even in DC, like I prefer to take the bus, the train, walk. Oh man, when they put those scooters out, whoo! Oh man, I used to be out there like 3 a.m, like about to break my neck downtown. Like
we rented scooters when we were there recently, and they got stolen when we were out by the pond taking pictures.
Yeah, that's DC. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yep.
No, I wasn't. My cousins, they got cars. I didn't want cars. I didn't want clothes. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to like go somewhere, or I wanted an animal. You know what I mean? Or something like I was an archery champion in high school as well. So like if you come to my house, like I had like the target in my backyard, and me and my cousins would, because we hunted at a young age. Like where I live now, my family has like 106 acres of land, like on the other side, and like nobody even goes there anymore. But we used to go out there. We were like, my cousin, like he was into guns and I was into knives and bow and arrows and crossbows, and I did martial arts and I did wushu and Shotokan, for almost a decade.
Wow.
So like that's what we were. We were like two white kids, honestly. When you think about it, like the activities that we did were not things that my cousins that were Black or Latino, or even some of my Asian friends, they weren't even doing that type of stuff. And so I had a good life growing up, but obviously you have you have your down times as well. But because of that, like I said, like I had so many more experiences, and I definitely wouldn't be able to talk to you and do all of this stuff and even like tell people things and prove it to them and show them and be like, no, bro, it works. Go ahead and try it. Without all of that. Like, bro, I was running away from home at 14. You know what I mean? Like across state lines. Like I was in the mix. You know what I mean? Like I listen to some people talk, and and I'm just like, bro, yeah, you don't even know, bro. Dude, I was taking Greyhounds at 14. Like they shouldn't even have been giving me a ticket. You know what I mean? Like to stay up California, Ohio, like going to see, because I felt I was in a bad situation. But animals like kept me sane, and I started smoking cigarettes and weed like pretty early. But yeah, I would hide my money in my cigarettes, like in the wooden frame of my bed. I'd smoke out my window at night. But yeah, I was like strict, like no TV Monday through Thursday, which was hard for me because I was a video game crackhead. You ask anybody who went to high school with me, like
Nintendo or Atari?
Everything. I went to so many championships and competed in the area. I was a monster. Like it's so like, dude, Amy, like when I talk and I do these podcasts, like some people really enjoy me talking, but I guess some people don't understand that like I'm extremely self-aware. I'm like Deadpool, like he knows he's a comic character. And I know that. And that's how I talk about but I have a lot of people who just don't like me because of how I talk and the things and I'm like, bro, I'm not trying to brag or boast about anything. I'm just telling you what I did. You know what I mean? It's not my fault. You don't do anything. You know what I mean? Like that's not my fault. So, but yeah, bro, I mean, we could sit and talk all day, but that stuff shaped me. And it really gave me a lot of character. And I also didn't realize until recently, like how close to things I was as like in politics and things like that, close to people that I was, like even now, like things are happening in the news. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't even know that I already knew that. You know what I mean? So, and I subscribe to a lot of newsletters, like 7 or 8. If anybody is interested, I can give you a site. If anybody is interested in you go to like Pinsolf. Like I get like zoo systematics and evolution newsletters. I'm constantly reading because I just said no TV Monday through Thursday. So sometimes when they would go to sleep and I knew they would sleep, I would like turn on Final Fantasy VII like real low. And I would play it, and you'd hear the button, hear stop and listen, like
yeah.
Turn the TV off and get back in bed and fake sleep, like. But even like I was limited, even of like what I could have and what I could do with it animal wise. Like I would get like stuff. Like remember when I got my first blood python, but she wouldn't let me take it out and hold it. So like. Sometimes like I have my door closed and like, she'd just bust in like Gestapo. Like, what are you doing in here? What we got that snake out? You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, I can't do nothing. So then I had to put the snake away and, and then I started sneaking stuff home and keeping it in the walk-in closet. And then I don't know why, she just decides she has to start putting her clothes in my closet. So now, since she finds stuff that I've got hidden in there, like, I've just got a million stories. And I would get beat over this stuff. Like, I ain't going to sit here and hold you. Like, I would get beat over them finding animals, cigarettes, weed, random money. Like, yeah, I was all over the place. Like, you know what I mean?
Pack it up and run away.
For sure. No, bro, I got suspended, I think, and I got suspended from first grade on to my senior year and then expelled from boarding school my freshman year for something that I didn't even do. And I got some crazy snake stories about in boarding school, just crazy stories in general. But and then there's that Chelsea Clinton story.
Well, but, we need to hear it. I was going to ask if we could just have one outrageous story, and now you mentioned one. So
which story? Which one?
The Chelsea Clinton story. I never heard
that. Was okay. So my aunts, like I said, were all teachers, right? They're all teachers. So they all worked at all the schools that we went to. So we basically got no break for education for free. Yeah. And well, sometimes, not all the time, but a lot of times, like they would be a teacher there. Like my one aunt was like everybody's third grade teacher. Like Father Blue went to school where one of my aunts was a college counselor. Like that's one of my aunts was so involved in the DMV school circuit. Like she has literally taught at every public and private school in DC, including the best ones. And she was headmaster of Sidwell Friends, which for anyone, let alone a woman, let alone a Black woman in the 80s to be running that school, it's why I'm the way that I am now, because that woman is a child psychologist. So I got free degrees and other stuff as well. But so they went to Sidwell. Some of my cousins went to Sidwell. I went to a Presbyterian school around the corner. And so I could just walk there to meet them, and we carpool, and they, we go home. So we're sitting there on the stoop, and one of my cousins is, he's sitting there talking, one of the older ones, and then my other cousin sit down and we're talking and whatever. Like, yo, what's going on for the weekend? Like, man, yeah, I'm trying to go up to Great Falls and do some hiking. And my one cousin's just like, man, I'm going to the White House this weekend. And and so we're like, man, you going to the White House? He's like, yeah, I'm going to Chelsea Clinton's my lab partner. And so he just starts going like, he's just like going on and on about Chelsea Clinton, and we're going to watch all these movies. We're going to go into Presidential Theater. And I'm just like, and I'm like, bro, you really want to sit around and look at that pig-faced woman? And as I'm saying that, guess who's walking by? Like literally. And she looks at me and I look at her and I'm like, Chelsea Clinton used to be at the Go-Go's. If you don't know what a Go-Go is, that's a DC, like DC, we have our own music called Go-Go. And so my aunt set up youth programs in the 80s, but they also had contracts with some, like Doug will know, Backyard Band, Big G, and all those guys who did Go-Go. My aunts had contracts with them, and since they were at all the private schools, they would have them come and play at the schools on the weekends. So, like I said, everybody was there. It wasn't just for Black people. Everybody was there. But Chelsea Clinton used to be there. Her security would be in the back. They can't say anything, unless she's like in danger. Like she could be doing the, you know what I mean? And they can't do nothing. So, so yeah, no, I've definitely grown up with some politicians' kids, and, there's definitely some stuff that I can't say on here. Right.
There always is good, the best stuff. It's like the NFS sign when something's not for sale. We say that's the nicest flipping stuff.
Right.
That's why you can't have it. The best stories you can't tell. But I want to tell a quick story along the lines of what you just said. And it was after my second trip that I was in Peru. I only had found one emerald in 2 trips, and I had spent a month there each of those times hunting out in nature, looking. And so I put a post on the Facebook Emerald Tree Forum page, and somebody messaged me back and said, I can find this for you. Somebody to take me out to look for northerns was what I was asking for, to just learn how to find the emeralds, because the Batisi are so hard to find. And then the northerns are, because of the export, being legal, it's easier to find because groups of people actually do that for a living. So a person told me that they could do that for me. And this was my my very good friend, thankfully, still my very good friend all these years later, Igor. And I had messaged Larry. I was on the airplane leaving from Peru to fly back to the States. And so I had like 6.5 hours before I hit Miami or wherever. And at that time, I was messaging him with Igor, messaging and all this stuff. And then I messaged Larry and my husband, and I told him, Igor, there's this guy in Suriname. His name is Igor. And he says he can help me do this, but he's old, he's fat, and he recently had a heart attack, and he could die any day, and my whole opportunity will be over. So I have to go right now. Like as soon as I get back, 2 weeks later, I turned around and went there. Well, that message I sent to Igor, not to my husband. And so I realized it as soon as the plane was taking off. So I had to sit for 6.5 hours knowing that I sent Igor a message saying that he was old and fat and recently had a heart attack and could die any minute. And then the whole plane ride, I just thought, well, if it's not meant to be, because there's no way he's going to still accept you. But he laughed so hard, and we've become good fast friends.
Lie, right?
That's what he said. He said that's all true, and I accept true things.
Right, and you know what? That's what I tell people. Like, bro, if you're gonna talk about me, like, don't make stuff up. Like, no, for sure. No, that's funny. No, because you would think like, well, hell, I'm gonna put this snake right back where I found it. Get a text message like that. Dude, how much are they out there? What, like $3 or $4 American? Because
no,
Indonesia, like
no. They're not, they're not the high price that they are here, but they are, the people who have a license to deal with the animals pay good money. That's why I always say, I'm not gonna say the exact price because I've been asked to quit saying that.
Well, no, you can just, I mean,
but I'll tell you, this is a true fact that I have learned and experienced and seen all kinds of different scenarios. And I tell people, quit dogging the wild caught, because it's not the wild caught that are having such problems. It's like you said, Rain, the way they're doing it. How are they being captured and brought over? Well, there are some people who don't have licensure to trade in animals in Suriname, and those guys will take anything that anybody catches.
Right.
And then you have your really good exporters like my friends who would only ever take a strong looking fresh snake, and have all the paperwork and everything for it. So when you're working with the real legitimate exporters, and they're very careful about collecting healthy animals, quarantining those animals before they ship them to Miami. And then on the other end, you have good importers who are taking them and also quarantining.
Right.
So you have one process, and those animals are a higher price than the wild. Even wild and those exporters pay a better price. But then you have, your whole other group of people who are doing this without the proper paperwork and moving things along at very low prices, moving sick animals without paying a lick of attention to the 200 animals in a crate. So it just really varies.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, like, I don't know much about the South American trade currently, but I still follow Southeast Asia very closely. And like, even me, because I still deal with guys over there, and like, what people were paying. And then they ask me, I'm like, bro, I pay like $20. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, bro, like, it's not. And it's like you said, because there is two lists. And people have gotten mad at me for saying that before. Well, bro, there's a trash list, and then there's like a really high end list. And depending on how you feel, I guess, or how your money is, kind of like what Amy just said, is what you'll buy. But the problem is, regardless of which list those animals come off of, they get sold here for almost the same exact price. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And people don't believe me sometimes when I'm like, yeah, like blue tree monitors cost $10 over there. And they're like, really? So why do they sell them for $4,000 over here? I'm like, because they only cost $10 over there. Like, that's a crazy markup, my dude. Like, and I'm not going to say I'm guilty of doing things like that. Early on, like I learned this the hard way. Like, the reptile guys wouldn't even mess with me at first. Like, well, everything was cool until I started asking about importing. And then it wasn't cool anymore. And so I had to go deal with the big cat guys. And that was dangerous. And I didn't find that out until I was like in the danger. So, because that's, the more I tell people, the more exotic the animal, the more exotic the danger. You ain't never been kidnapped before. I tell people that over animals. But
right, not over animals, by animals.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not, and the more exotic the animal, the more exotic the danger, and the more exotic the shadiness of the people that you're dealing with. Like, these guys will bail on you. So you better know who you're dealing with. I've heard Dan talk a little bit about, stuff, experience that he's had and other people. When you go over there, that's how you can always tell, like, who's really been and who's not. Because we all got similar stories. You know what I mean? Like, because, I remember when I was in boarding school, at that same boarding school, that's the one where the ceiling in the lounge caved in because there was like 100 black rat snakes living in the ceiling. that was a crazy day. But I will tell you the story about how I cost us the track meet here in a second. I just lost my thought. What was I saying? This is what happens when you smoke so much in my short term.
Or when you just have so many different things to think about. I think your smoke is wearing off and you're not able to focus as well as you were.
I'll tell the track meet story and maybe I'll remember. I think I was talking about like pricing and things like that.
Yes, importing and
importing.
Haters.
Basically, like, the gist of it is like, it's easy to get in a bad situation, even on the softer side. And the softer side is like, you send money to somebody and you don't get anything. Like, that's the softest version of getting scammed. Anything above that is danger. You know what I mean? If anybody tells you anything different, they haven't done it, because Indonesia is like always a constant war zone. South America, constant war zone, like all these places. And sometimes you can't get through to do things and you have to stop, or you get caught up in the crossfire. You don't have anything to do with it. Like, for people who don't know, like, the history of like Melanesia or present day Indonesia, like, the Aboriginals are the original people over there and they look like me. And those people have been being prosecuted over there since like the late 18th century. And then, like, when the Dutch gave them their independence, the Indonesians came and tricked them into a fake election and then started like killing them all, forcing them back into the jungles for the palm oil and the green tree pythons and all the other stuff that you like. But you didn't know that people were getting killed and displaced for you to get these animals here. So, but people get mad when I say that. And I'm like, why? People died so you could have that. Like, I think people should know that. That's important.
And really, that seems the case with any resource.
Yeah. Anything that has any kind of like self-sustaining or self-sustaining is like, because like when you think of an animal, you look at it, most people probably aren't going to look at it the way I'm going to say it, but if times really got hard for you, you could eat your reptiles. And I'm not saying that you should or that you will. I'm just saying, what I'm saying is these animals are being looked at in more ways than you think. I have studies that the government has paid colleges to do on us. I have them. I can send them to people. I have another PDF called The Modern Day Reptile Industry, and it was done at a college. They've been studying us, the mentality of what we do. They're studying us, but we're not studying them. So that's why we're losing the war when it comes to animals. Nobody gets attacked the way that we do. Nobody has all the ban bills that we do. Even the pit bull has gotten a break, after all these years.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's like, it's just this constant barrage of this and that. And, and I came out as well to try to fight the good fight, but I came with a whole different way of thinking, and they tried to trash me for it. And so because of that, I started to get this like fictitious name that people were like, oh, this, don't trust him. He's that, he's doing that. But nobody could ever say what I was doing. Like, still to this day, like, I'm waiting to know what my hidden agenda is. So, like, I just tried to make us like $100 million a year. Like, that was my agenda. That's all I wanted to do.
I just wanted one water snake in a pillowcase.
Right. That's all. That's how this started. Like, bro, that's just.
But I would like to interject again. As far as the exporting, I have so much to say about that. And I've said a lot of things many times. But one thing I haven't mentioned is that I did hear a rumor that Peru may be opening back up to some exportation, which may possibly include the Coryllius batisi, the basin emerald tree boa. And one of the reasons that I actually liked hearing that is because Suriname, where I spend most of my trips, lots of time in Suriname, is the most forested rainforest in all of the world. And those people have been taking the resources from the jungle, as in all types of animals, for exportation, as well as eating. Everything they do is a resource that they take from the jungle. Well, they're still unlimited. None of these animals are on any kind of extinction list.
Right.
But then if you move to Peru, Brazil, Colombia, where animal exportation has basically never been legal, but pretty much a good stop went to it.
You got animals there that are like, yeah, we only got so many left, or
yeah, and we stopped that like around the 70s. Well, I've been to some of those places that were stripped, and there's nothing, not even caiman in the water, which is highly unusual.
No, this is very true what she's saying. Like it's very weird.
So here's my point to it. If what Peru, the rumor is that their reasoning is they want to start using the resources that are already in the jungle for the people to live. And because they're not doing that, they're coming in and clearing so much land for the people to make money in other ways. So either way you look at it, either their habitats are being completely destroyed because the local people are trying to make money off that land, right, or they can make as much or more money by working with those animals like the way they do in Suriname and Guyana. So there's a real two-edged sword to how we look at exportation. For and I can definitely, I feel for myself, but I feel like I have a really good argument with a lot of background experience firsthand of why exportation just really is not bad. Like you said, again, Rain, if it's done the right way.
Right. It's here's the thing. This is the problem with the exportation and the reptiles and the amphibians is, one, you have a community of people who don't know how to breed animals properly as a whole. So that's why there's so much inbreeding and scatterbreeding. If these animals were set up on proper programs, the way canines, horses, bovine, even marijuana plants are, then you would have a less need to export or import only when you needed animals. Because let's say if someone came to me and you and they're like, hey, we want you to start a breeding program for Amazon basins. And how many animals would you need? And I would say I would need 6 animals, 2 males and 4 females. I could work off of those 2 males with those 4 females. I probably wouldn't have to buy any other snakes for at least 15 years. But I'm going to write everything down and I'm going to show you, and I'm going to prove to you why I don't have to. Now, maybe in a 10-year, maybe if an animal dies, but probably not even then. And the reason why is because I have 2 males, I have 4 females. I can breed both of those males to all 4 females, and I can get all the males that I need from those females. So I'm going to produce to reproduce, and then I'm going to use my reproductions to make more reproductions on a line. There's a lot of people in the reptile community that think that they have lines of animals, and they don't. And I've done 2 podcasts on this.
Well, what exactly is a line of an animal?
In order to have a line bred animal, first it starts by outcrossing into a line breeding. And in order to line breed properly, that means that all the animals have to have one common relative. It doesn't work. If they do not have one common relative that they were all related to genetically, then you can't do a line breeding. So let's say this. I actually probably have the charts. Actually, they're right there.
So is a line breed a desirable thing?
Well, if you are trying to get consistency, yes. Are there flaws to line breeding? Yeah, there are flaws to everything. The more if you don't do it properly, here's the thing about line breeding, right? You line breed, so you outcross to line breed. And the reason I line bred is because I have animals that I really, really like. And this is for me. This is the first thing to breeding is, one, stop breeding for money. Stop breeding to sell your animals. I am only breeding animals for me first and foremost. I could care less how much money you offer me. Because one
couldn't care less.
Right. If and when I have something for sale, you will know. But I'm breeding for me first and foremost. So I do my outcross, right? So all the animals that I bought, it's a selection. It's a selective breeding. I picked them for a reason. So that means I want to see all of those traits as much as possible without damaging them as much as possible. So you outcross your male. Let's do a 1.2. You do your male to both your females, right? I'll just explain it. You do your male to both your females. So now you have a male that has offspring from 2 females, right? So you're going to take a 1 and 1 from each one of those clutches or litters, and then you're going to cross them. That's your first line breeding. If you've never done what I just said, the exact way that I just said it, you have never line bred an animal. Please, people, this stuff, really, you don't have to take my word for it. Take a look. It's in a book.
It's reading rainbow.
Listen to these people. And I mean, I can say some names, but I ain't going to do that. But that is a line breeding. And then from there, you're looking for specific traits from all 3 of those animals. And you're documenting. You should be, listen, by the time you are done writing your program, I just did a video on this Sunday. This is why I was giving them new words to use. Instead of calling yourself a breeder, call yourself an author, because you're writing a program. By the time you are done breeding your animals correctly, you should have a pamphlet that you can give to every single person when you do decide to sell your animals. And they used to do this, but they don't do it anymore.
Some people do.
Yeah, as I said, they used to. A lot of in the 80s and 90s, you used to get that stuff, but not anymore. I'm sure there's a handful of people.
Yeah, like Steve Volk, for example, but he is an old school who has been.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like it didn't transfer over. And I guess the way I think is that I shouldn't have to tell people this stuff. And then they get mad when I say it like that because it sounds like I'm being an a-hole. And I'm like, well, maybe I am a little bit, but I mean, come on, man. Like, document what you're doing so that way you can go back. Like I just said about the real estate agent. Who knows your animals better than you? So there's nothing wrong with having hours and hours of conversation about your animals with your clients, but you can only have so many people on the line at one time and too many people talking and then nothing gets done. So if they have a book to refer to as a reference point, then that's great. And you can show them what you did. Yeah, I did a line breeding here. And so your line breeding ultimately goes, if you got what you want, then you're going to do an inbreeding. You're going to do an inbreeding. You cannot make a bloodline without outcrossing to line breeding to inbreeding. When you do that inbreeding, it should be followed by an immediate outcross to a totally unrelated animal.
So first you breed the half siblings, or well, they're not called siblings if they're half. Are you frozen? I don't know if he's frozen for everybody, but he is for me. There you are. Kind of. There you were for 1 second. But when he gets back, we'll confirm that. I think what he's saying is you have to breed the 2 half brother and sister, and then they have to be outsourced to an unrelated animal. And also when he gets back, I want to ask him if all of this information was something that developed with his dog breeding. We lost him, but he'll be back. I'm real interested in talking about the exportation stuff. I really wish I could get a real exporter to come and chat with me. even though I have friends who are that, and I have chatted with them in the past, but none of those guys, I would have to be there in person because those guys are not going to try to set up a phone good enough to chat, and it would be real hard to hear them and everything. If anybody's already seen my interviewer with Igor, he's a Russian guy who has lived in Suriname for years, so it's real hard to understand him. But he did it. But the technology wise, that wouldn't be possible. Here you are back with us
that's
again.
what happens, man. When you start kicking that knowledge, the matrix be like, yo.
Too much energy, like bottlenecks in there.
We left the matrix for a little while. But what was your question?
Oh, my question was so what you're saying is once the half brother and sister are bred together, then that baby that you're going to use that you found the traits in would have to be bred to an unrelated animal.
Right. So you're outcross and then you're line bred, what you just stated. So yeah, you outcross, you take the outcross babies, you line breed them, and then those, whatever ones you choose. And when you write it down and you do it, you can see because you're going to have ones that you might want one, like you'll color code it. You know what I mean? So you'll have like red male, blue male, green female. So then that way, when you do your color code, you can see which one has more of what genetics, or it should. And so you do your outcross to line breed to inbreed, right? So your line bred animals will now, so you're going to say, you've got some great line bred animals. I need to lock these genes in. We got to try to prove it. So now what you're going to do, but you're not going to do, listen to me, people, carefully. I ain't telling you to breed brother and sister. I'm not telling you to, what I'm telling you, when you when you inbreed, you want to do a distant inbreeding. So you want to take those babies, those line bred babies, and you want to breed them back to their respective sex. So the males will be bred to their mothers, however you want by the color code. So you decide. So those are going to be more dominant to the phenotypes of the females. And then the ones that you breed to the males are going to have more dominant phenotypes of the males. So that's your inbreeding. That is your locking of the gene. If you don't do that, when you try to outcross a line bred animal, you're going to lose everything you just did because it's open-ended. Because it has no, like, inbreeding does like this. It comes in where outcross obviously is like, if that makes sense. Let me see. If that way people can see it and maybe I can visualize it a little bit better. So, okay, I don't know how well you can see that, but so this is what, in my mind, what outcrossing looks like. Let me turn this light on a bit. So it's just scatter breeding. That's why we call it that. You're never going to get this again. If this is the dog or the snake that you're looking to get, the green one, you're never going to see it because you bred with random blue, random red, random green, random blue, because you're breeding for looks. And obviously, and with reptiles, looks are a huge part of what we do. So you have to also, since this is a method that is generally used for mammals, obviously you're going to have to tweak it, people. You're going to have to tweak it. But this is also a form of line breeding. This is the most common that I see in the reptile community. And this is when they take that really like.
Can you repeat that? Repeat that when.
Went out again. Hold on. Shit.
There you are. You're back.
Okay. So this is the most common type of line breeding that you see in the reptile community. When people are like, oh, I have a line bred, but this is scatter breeding still. So this blue line represents a male and all these represents females. So they think that if they take this male and they breed it to a bunch of different random females, that's a line. That's open-ended. There is no line there. That's the same. It's like humans are scatterbred. You know what I mean? By like 7, 8 generations, you're not even related to those people back there anymore. So it's the same thing. You're breeding away from your goal. So, and then inbreeding, it can only be one color. and you see eventually it just locks on itself and your whole program collapses. So ultimately you would, where's my other chart? So I had a third chart, but I don't know where it went. So
well, you did skip one on that.
Did I?
Yes, you skipped
line
the
breeding.
third one.
Did. That's the weed. Line breeding. Yeah, that's the most important one.
Yeah.
So yeah, line breeding. Let's see. So this is where you start, right? And then right here is where you breed. You're breeding you're breeding green to blue, outcross one. My light came on, and then green to red. That's an outcross. Right there. You see where that line? That's your line. That's your line breeding. It happened green, right? Because you started with green. So you always are going to get back to green when you line breed, because green is what I'm looking to reproduce. People are just producing. That's why they always say, I produce. Okay, anybody can produce, but you're not reproducing. If you can't reproduce, then you don't know how to breed, flat out. And so most people don't know how to breed, and they say, I got this bloodline, and it's either inbred or scatterbred. But in order to prove type, you have to outcross, line breed, inbreed, and then immediate outcross. And your immediate outcross is what we call proving type. If I did everything before that right, then when I breed to an outcross basin, I should see a lot of the same traits in my inbred animals. It is a slower ride because reptiles have a harder gene than mammals. So and this is why they inbreed, because that speeds it up. That's why they just inbreed, and they sell you brother and sister pairs. Like, I don't know, I guarantee you 80% of the pairs or more or so, they're brother and sister, and they're being bred that way.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're seeing problems from the genes collapsing on itself from 40 years of breeding these animals. I've been here since, like I said, since 88. You can tell, all the animals that have been with us the longest because they're all mutated. Fat tail geckos, leopard geckos, ball pythons, boa constrictors, corn snakes, king snakes, rat snakes. All those snakes have been with us the longest, and that's why they're all the most mutated. So when you start thinking about like positive lists and things like that, that's what you think about going to be on those kind of lists. Because those things don't matter anymore. That's like it's like a goldfish. So they're cool with you having that stuff, but green tree python, stuff like this, no, that's too much. And plus, pets are luxuries anyway. And then you don't want to regulate, you don't breed them properly, this, that, and the other. So hognose is another one. I used to be obsessed with hognose growing up back in the day. That was one of my favorite snakes. So because of the lack of regulation, we don't have insurance, we don't have proper breeding programs, we don't have a registry, we just don't have anything. That is going to be the downfall of the community, unfortunately. I mean,
can you turn your light back on?
Yes. Here, I got another light here. I'll turn this one on. It's getting all the lights usually pretty dark in here, so at this time. But I'll turn this light on. Does that work? Hold on. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Right, cool.
We can see you again.
Yeah, see, Amy just made a soft racist joke. She said I'm too dark to have the lights off in here. No,
Listen, I'll tell you a funny story that actually crossed my mind when you were talking just now with the lights off. My mom's family is from Gary, Indiana. And I was up there. Yeah, we were up there visiting, and we were at this outdoor park. I was just a kid. And there was these two super dark fellas with hoodies on, and they were standing in the corner of the bumper cars, those electric ones that hook up to the top. And they were scaring all of us kids by they would be in the dark, and then they were smiling real big and opening their eyes and scaring us because you couldn't see them at all, and they knew it. And afterward, we heard them talking about all those white kids shitting their pants, and like they knew exactly what they were doing. And right now, when you were sitting in the dark, that's what crossed my mind.
Oh man, yeah, she was having a flashback. I was gonna tell you the story about how I lost this track meet.
Oh yes.
Over a snake. I just when you said that Nate, when you said the kids were running, I was like, oh, well, so I used to run cross country, and I hate sports outside of like martial arts and like soccer, like archery, stuff like that. Like I like the obscure stuff. But at the boarding school I went to, you had to do a sport. Like you had to. You didn't have. It's either that or you could be like a manager of a team. And since they were like, no, you're already the manager of the basketball team, so no. So I'm like, cross country, how hard can it be? Yeah, I didn't really know what cross country was, but I found out. I should have been thinking cross country, but and yeah, oh man, they used to run us. They used to just drop us off and be like. So we had a meet, right? And there was a soccer game going on that day. And I was at this campus in Maryland, in St. James, Maryland. And beautiful campus. They had peacocks out there, all kind of, crazy wildlife. And got this meet, right? So we start running the meet. I think it was like 3 miles or 4 mile meet. I don't even remember. It was too long, I'll tell you that. And so there's a soccer game going on. And so there's a soccer game, the meet's going on. I think there was even something going on in the gym. So we're running, right? And, cross country is just all about like distance and endurance. So we're running and we get like behind the school where like my dorm is. And there's this huge hill. And then they're like, I think it was my counselor's house was there, and then the peacock cage, and there was this huge hill where they would play field hockey or lacrosse, either or. And so there's like this dip on this hill where we're running. And I wish I could like show you, but then there's this hole, right, like on the hill, on the side of the hill. So we're running the meet, right? First lap around, second lap around, I see this like black like thing just like slide into that hole. And so I'm like running, and then I like run back. And so my dorm is right here, like on the left side. And then there's the emergency steps that can take you right back up in there. So I like turn around and I run up the emergency steps into my dorm, and I grab a pillowcase. And I run back down the steps, and I go back to the meet. I go back out. I don't even know what kind of snake is in there. I'm not even really sure if it was a snake in there until I actually like just shoved my hand in this hole. Like I felt something move. I grabbed it. It bit me. I'm like, oh, stuff. And so I'm like, all right, well. So I pull it out, and it's this big eastern rat snake. And so I'm trying to get it in the bag, right? I'm trying to put it in the bag. And there comes like the other team and like one of my teammates, and I'm standing there on the hill, and it looks like I'm like, yeah, it looked weird.
Yeah.
Okay, when I'm supposed to be running cross country, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, in there, and I finally get in, and I pull my hand up, and it's like leaking blood, and I like wrap it up, and then the one guy's like walking, and he's looking, and he's like, bro, like, WTF? Like, come on, man, what's up? And I'm like, and so I run back up and I throw it on my bed, and then I go back out and I finish the meet, and we lost because of me. We were going to lose anyway. That's what I told him. We were going to lose anyway.
So did you carry the snake with you, or did you leave it somewhere?
I ran back up to my dorm and I put it on my bed, and then I came back down I finished my lap.
Yeah, so you really did spend a lot of time out there.
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, I love that school for one because I wasn't at home. There was wildlife everywhere, and they had a Mortal Kombat 2 arcade machine. And like, dude, there were just snakes galore. But yeah, I did. I got kicked out of that school for some stuff I didn't even do, which was crazy. First they suspended me, and then I got expelled. So I got suspended because I didn't know the answer to a question they asked me about another kid. So this African kid there, you talk about black, this African kid there named Agaba Tumasimi. I'll never forget that name ever as long as I live.
Agaba tumicini.
I think I might have told this on the other podcast, but yeah, bro, I got expelled because he snuck off campus, and we were in the same group. Now that I think about it, that might have been a racial thing. I don't remember them questioning the white kids or the Korean kids. But they asked me if I remembered him like asking for permission to go off campus. And I'm like, bro, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't in there. And they were like, yeah, you were, and you did hear him. What did he say? And I'm like, bro, I do not know. So they suspended me. And so I got suspended for a week. That was the only time I didn't get in trouble at home. And so I come back, and like after my suspension, and like my grades were pretty good. And so the teachers were like, yeah, you go ahead and just use your book to take your test just to get you caught up. You're going to pass anyway. And so, but I had to go to the pit. When you have a below B average, or when you get in trouble, you can't study in your room. You got to go to the pit, which was fine because this hot Japanese chick was in the pit too. And like, I thought that was I swear I did. If I had let me not say that.
Say it.
but so I'm in the pit, and I'm like using my books because that's what they said I could do. And then like the teacher that was over the pit that night comes over, and he's like, bro, aren't you taking your exams? And I'm like, yeah. And yeah, I'm like, yeah, bro, why would I be like cheating right next to you? And so he's like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, they told me that I could, to get caught up. And so, I guess he went and asked all the teachers, and all but one said that they did say that I could use my book. And it was like the guy I thought was like my favorite teacher. But now that I think about it, that dude looks exactly like Epstein. When I just thought about that. That's the guy that got me kicked out. Well, him and then the student council voted me out. The same guys I was smoking weed with in the woods sat up there and voted me out. I got expelled, and I had to go back to the school where I jumped out of the canoe and got bit by the dry bite by the copperhead. So
you got bit by the what? I
had a dry bite by a copperhead. It's like, what was that? Like 95 or 6. Yeah, I like left my kids in the canoe. Yeah.
Well, Rain, we still want to hear about your 10-foot cobra. I don't know if he can hear me right now, but we have some really cool things to still hear from Rain. And Chris, if you're out there, I'm going to ask you in a second if you can start our sponsor video, our amazing sponsor video that you put together. And before that video starts, I've been wanting to say hello to Syzygy, Morelia, Gabriel. I see Tim from Intrepid Exotics here, giving me a big old toothy smile. And Baloo and Gabriel, thank you all for always being here. We really love having you here. And Chris, anytime you are ready to start that video, it looks like it might be a good time. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. I was trying to go by memory. I'm sure I said Morelia, I hope. And a lot of folks here that I haven't heard from before. And Kat, I saw Kat here earlier. And thank you guys all for joining us on the Happy Basins podcast on the Untamed and Unhinged Reptile podcast channel on YouTube. And sometimes I don't know if Chris is there. So Chris, if you are there and you can hear me, we are ready to start that sponsor video. Rain.
Lights come on, pulse in the air, we unite. Cold-blooded got 5 feet in the night. Cold-blooded caffeine, fueling the fight. Reptile crew got our backs tight. Thank you for keeping us all. CMB reptiles rolling with soul. Hold no soul, lifting our goal. Together we burn like burning coal. Elevate more fries in the show. Irresistible pythons letting it flow. Rhetoric crew, yeah, we watch them go. Indigo, reptile co set the glow. Shut up feeders with shut out feeders. Under the rock with cold-blooded hitters. Ship your reptiles, make life better. South Bay reptiles through every weather. I'm a blue tongue republic. Architect publishers right in the public. No fakes, no breaks, we're here to publish. Taking it higher, dreams embellished. Sponsors love through beats, we rise. Showing thanks to the under the skies. Unite the world, reptile ties. Cold blood, warm hearts, no disguise.
There you are. It's nice to have you back.
I'm back.
It was a perfect time to take a break. And we're talking about some really fun stuff, but I see it's already 7:30 and I don't want to miss out on a few topics. For example, a 10-foot cobra. Is that something you still have?
Yeah, that's my dude. He's right here.
Wow. How long have you had him? Tell us about him.
I've had him because I'm a cobra fanatic. I've had him for 3 years. A buddy of mine down in Texas had brought him in from Togo. And so I got him, and he was like, he wanted to kill me for like the first year and a half. And so now he's like, people see me feeding him. And I'm like, man, that thing is like more gentle than my, I put in a lot of work, like real work, not like snake hook. Like, yeah, I'm handling my venomous. Like, bro, all right, whatever. I ain't going to say nothing. I think there's just different levels to that. But, he is actually funny. He must know that I'm talking about him because he just stuck his head out of the hide, like literally. But yeah, that's he's an interesting animal. The largest species of true cobra, Naja guineensis, or the black forest cobra. Actually, like I just got a full shed from this guy. I don't know if like total full sheds. They're usually, by the time I get them, they're all like messed up. But this is the first like complete cobra shed that I've had from a snake.
Wow.
So, like it's the total shed. Like,
wow, he is huge.
Like no rips or anything. Well, I've ripped it because I got it up there. But
right, I know. I do the same thing with the best ones because I've always put them somewhere and then move stuff in and out of the space, and it's like, dang it, that was a perfect shed.
So yeah, I that just lets me know that I'm doing the right thing in there.
Yes.
So but yeah, he's pretty chill now. I let him out. Not so much anymore. I don't have a ton of space in this room because now I have like behind you. Well, yeah, I guess it is behind you, but in front of me, I have a 3x3x5 for just a pair of phylomedusas, and they just got this huge enclosure for them, and I built like a tree from the ground up for them in there. And then, so yeah, I don't have a ton of space, and then I have a rack that's nothing but snails. I generally have anywhere from like 5 to 7 species of snails at any given time.
Wow. What's the biggest snail you have?
The biggest ones that I have are the Lacorum, the Turkish snails.
How big is that? Is that like?
No, they're not that big. They're like, I don't know, maybe like, mine's not that big yet though, but yeah, I have Helix Lacorum, I have Helix Asperus, I have Delicate Rominig, which is like my favorite. I have flame tiger snails, I have Petaurus, I have, ironically, all right, listen, hopefully nobody from town is watching. But they got this snail here, right, that I have, and it's called a 3-tooth snail because I live in the mountains in a little town, and there's a lot of 3-tooth people around here. So that snail, bro, when I was looking it up, I was like, hell no, this can't be right. They've got a 3-tooth snail in a town where my neighbor only has 3 teeth. All right. So, I got this snail rack here, and then I've got actually a little viper that lives on that rack with the snail. I actually need to put him in one of these. I just haven't set it up. So I don't have room to let him out in here. I take him down to my sunroom, but then I have to like catch him, put him in the bin, and then bring him downstairs and let him out. I would love to take him outside. But my yard, like, it's just too many spaces and I don't have any help. So, it's just me. Like, and people always ask me too, they're like, who taught you venomous? And I'm like, well, I don't have any formal training at all. Like, I'm just a G. That's all. I'm just like that. As we say where I'm from, I'm just like that, Slim. But no, I mean, it was a rocky road with him because he was so bad in the beginning and he's so big. He came to me big, you know what I mean? And dealing with him, he got out one time, which was my fault. And he got in one of my weed tents. He was in there while I was on holiday. But they're so smart. They're so smart. And they watch you and they learn your routine and they test you, especially cobras. And I love cobras. And, he like, when you don't come in here, if I don't come in here for like 2 or 3 days, he's going to start like trying to get out. And it could be on the level of he understands that I mean food, because I could probably hand feed him if I wanted to. I'm almost certain that I could, especially if anyone who saw that last video that I did with him. But in the beginning, it was not like that, like at all. Like I would come in here, and as soon as I'd come in, head up, mouth open, and then a year and a half went in. But I thought I was gonna have to get rid of him, and I don't like to do that. I did put him up for sale. And a couple people hit me up, but they were just like clowns. I had a guy, he's like, "Oh, can I get the cake?" And so
I don't know if you can hear me, but you're cutting out really bad. There you are. You're back. That was a good spot for it to be frozen with your face right in the camera.
I think so. I live in the mountains, like I live in the sticks.
Yeah.
So if it blows too hard, my Wi-Fi will go out. If the day is too nice, I'll lose Wi-Fi. Yeah, if it rains too hard, if I talk too loud, so I'm like, let me just come outside, and then that way I can just like sit in a hammock. And I got my my hammocks out here.
I love hammocks. I have hammocks in every room.
Yes, I know. So that way I can chill out here. So no, it was definitely an experience. I mean, obviously I've kept venomous snakes before, but I was like dealing with a lot of monocles and spitters, and to me, I guess everybody's opposite. To me, the bigger it is, the easier it is for me to handle.
That's exactly how I feel too.
And like I have a snake hook here, but it's really a field hook and I don't use it much. And with him, it's stupid. It's just going to get me bitten. You know what I mean? Trying to hook that snake probably weighs like 15 pounds. I don't know.
Wow.
Somewhere between 10 or 15 pounds. Like, he's a big snake. Just luckily he chilled out. But I've had spitters here that like just never, ever, ever calm down, like to the point where, I had to rehome them, especially a spitter, because it's annoying. And then the venom, inhaling all that venom. And you see, that's, what happens with dingo. You start building up, you start getting sensitive to that venom. And then
I didn't know you could inhale the venom. Can you just tell me about that?
Venom. Yeah.
I never heard that before.
So yeah, the spitters, that venom, the particles can get in the air and they spit a lot. They're like machine guns, and it seems like they just like don't run out of venom. And so generally now, if you look at some videos, you'll see people who work with spitters. They'll even have a filter mask on top of the face guard. And I don't like all that stuff. I understand like the eye stuff is necessary, but I don't even like working with gloves. Like when I used to work in kitchens, like in corporate kitchens, that's why I don't work corporate, because they used to want me to wear cutting gloves. I can't. I have to feel it. You know what I mean? And that's why I don't like snake hooks. But yeah, so if the more they spit while you're in there, those particles get in the air and you start breathing it, and then you build up a sensitivity to it. And then you can literally come in your room and die. I mean, that's kind of what happened with Dingo from all the bites that he had, to the point where I remember he went to, I think it was Will Nace's room. And, you know, they're like, you know, afterwards, he's like, bro, I can't even, I forget exactly what it was. But he's like, yeah, you know, something for to happen, like I have to leave the room because, you know, I can't even be in here. So I'm already dealing with venomous animals as it is, and they're already, you know, I told someone, you know, like having one venomous snake alone is enough. So I don't want to have 10 or 15 down the road. I've done that before. And the stuff that I like spitters, like I love spitters, but I don't want to kill myself doing what I love on purpose. You know what I mean? Now, if I get eaten by an alligator, like in the Pantanelas or the Llanos on a trip, then cool, whatever. But yeah, I don't want to be at home and like get bit. It's like, man, I got 45 minutes. That's enough time to smoke a blunt, watch an episode of Martin, and die. So, no, you know, I don't want to go out like that. But yeah, so I do deal with venomous, but I am very hands off with all of my animals. Like, I don't care if my monitor runs out and jumps all over me. Like, that's great. If he does that, cool. But I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as he's eating and he's healthy and you know, things like that. That's really all I care about. Like, I'm more of an observer when it comes to the exotics. Like I said, don't get me wrong. I did get a monitor because snakes aren't as stimulating as lizards, but I'm not really a lizard person. I like them all, but I'm a snake fanatic, you know, and I like the stuff that nobody really likes, like the snail eaters and ringneck snakes, like all the stuff a lot of people are like, oh, that's stupid. Why would you want that? Like, bro, you're not even really here for real, bro. You're on a field trip. You don't like snakes for real. Like, get away from me. So, yeah, I've not a king cobra fan though. I just like nausea. I know right now, like in order to be a cool kid, you got to have a Ophagius, either one of their species, or you're not a cool kid. So I guess I'm just not going to be a cool kid. But
that's a type of cobra.
Yeah, the king cobra. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of king cobras. Like, I like them. I've had them for clients, but I've never had one of my own. Like, I've never even owned a bearded dragon. I only touched when I met you. Around the time I met you was the first time I had ever touched a bearded dragon in my life. And I have caught king cobras in the wild. I've never handled a bearded dragon ever up until like 4 years ago, because I remember I had Turtle Island. I had the rescue, but I don't rescue anymore. So people don't send me any animals because I don't have the room. But when I rescued, this lady in Virginia had, I guess, her bearded dragon, I think, I don't know, somehow, I don't know. It got pregnant and it had babies, and there was like 40 of them. And so I got a call from her, and I was living in Colorado, and it was the middle of winter. And she's like, yeah, I got my bearded dragon had babies and I don't know what to do. And, you know, I looked up exotic animal rescue online and yours came up. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not in the DMV area, but you can ship them, because she wanted to bring them. She thought I was still in DC because that's what the address said. And I said, yeah, but you can ship them. And she's like, ship them? And she's like, they ship them? I'm like, yeah, that's how they got to your store. They ship them. And she's like, I had no clue. So I don't hear from her for like a month. I don't hear nothing from her. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe she sold them or she rehomed them or whatever. And then one day I get a knock at the door, bro. It's FedEx with this giant box. It says Reptile, and it's December in Colorado. Now, I forgot about her. I'm thinking this is my partner who lives in California sending me something from our facility and not telling. But I'm like, there's no way he would send me something in the dead of winter, like even as a surprise. And so I'm like, did I order something? Like, bro, I'd be smoking a lot. Like, maybe I ordered something and I don't even remember. So he hands me the box, and I'm like, so I get in, I open the box, and the bearded dragon jumps out of the box. And she had like all these like little like burlap sacks that she wrapped them in. Some of them were in plastic, like deli cups. Like 4 of them were running around in the box. Like, And so, yeah, I was like, oh man. Now, I honestly, like, I was not set up for lizards at all, like at all. And I ain't gonna lie to you, boy, I sold them things like crack rock. I had to. I didn't have a choice because the longer they stayed with me, I had wall to wall scrub pythons at that time. When I met you, I had wall to wall scrubs. I had a couple green trees and like some IJs. And I think that was it. I can't remember. Oh, and I had some tree monitors. I had yellow tree monitors. I had green tree monitors. And so, yeah, I really didn't have the space, but I'm like, man, I don't want anything to happen to them. So I'll take them. Man, I don't think I've ever sold weed that fast in my life. But yeah, within like 48 hours, they were gone. Like a couple of my home, like, and here's the thing about them, because I don't know anything about morphs like that. I know the basic stuff. My homie from Alaska who lived there, he came over and he knew. He was like, bro, where'd you get these from? I was like, sent them to me. He's like, man, these are worth like 300 each. And I'm like, well, bro, I'm about to sell these joints for like $20. Your website, because like, bro, they're rescues. I can't sell them for $300. I was like, one, I don't even have the time. I have to go get all this type of stuff. So he bought a bunch. And I'm sure he resold them, but I listed them, and a lot of people came like, oh, I want to get one for my kid. I was just looking at them online. I was getting ready to pay like $300 for one, and here you got one. So I tried my best to keep up with people with the rescue, but I've probably sent out over 3,000 animals in 10 years.
Wow.
Some of those people I am actually still friends with, you know, and they have had animals come and go. But yeah, that was my first experience and last experience with a bearded dragon was getting a box of like, I have pictures of that too, of like 30. I was just like, oh my God.
Wow.
Like she just boxed it up and they got out, the bags were open. I was like, man, that's crazy. Now I've had a snake. That happened with a snake one time. I bought from a guy who didn't know how to pack. And when I got there, like it was an anaconda. When I opened it up, the snake was in the box. I was like, thanks, buddy. Like, you get a band bill right here.
At least it wasn't a viper.
Yeah, well, we ain't going to talk about those stories. But yeah, no, man, I'm a good guy, but I do stuff sometimes. You know, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. So is that Go ahead. What were you going to No, is that one of your snakes out, or is that just behind you?
These are amazing sticks that I sent off to Michelle Maddox, a girl who I met on Facebook, and she does reptile art, and she carved these vine sticks that I found at different garage sales into emeralds. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, man, that thing has just been sitting there, like.
Some of them would sit here like this. Some of them wouldn't.
I wanna, if in the event that my monitor does like come around and, you know, become more curious, I would love to have something like that, like at the top, like level of that room where he can like come out like directly to the cage and jump and, you know, and run around. I would definitely do something like that. I think that's great. Like, I think that should be like standard. See, that's the problem. We don't have any standards in the reptile community, like on what should be. Like every animal is different, but we treat most of them the same. Even in the dog world, like we got all these different breeds, but everybody, they feed them the same, they treat them the same, but they're all different. You know, and then people complain when they don't get the results they want. Well, you're doing the same things with them. Like I always, even to this day, I hear the excuse of people. They're like, well, you know, they're captive bred. That's all they know. It's because that's all you gave them.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give they can't have any more than what you're going to give them. So, you know, but I don't understand why you wouldn't want to give them more.
Our Jaja she lives in the whole window with her perch area all up by the ceiling, and her heater and mister and fogger are all connected to the ceiling. And then she has a doggy door, and she literally uses it every single day to go in and out to her little outdoor space. She loves it.
Chris said we only got like 6 minutes.
Yes, I saw he reminded us that he's got another podcast.
Chris, you gotta stop producing everybody's stuff, man. That's the problem. This dude got like 19 shows on the same day.
Well, I'm not complaining. I can't believe what Chris does for me.
No,
He does
it's great.
everything. So just if you're going to give up some, don't give up mine. And I know the rest of us, our other 18 people are out there saying, don't give up mine either.
So now Chris is doing good things. We need more networking, like serious, like networking. Like that's going to be like the best thing to get people over the hump, and with the right people networking. So, but yeah, I'm long-winded. So Chris, I got you. I'm gonna shut up.
Just before we end, something I wanted to ask you along the last lines that we were just talking about. You said you had so many stories, but I have on my research here that you have seen animals mislabeled and flipped in ways most people don't know about.
Oh, for
sure. Do you have a 5-minute thing you can tell us about that?
Okay, so when it comes to like locality, this is the rule. There is no other rule. This is the rule. If you weren't there, then you don't know. Now, there are island species that you just can't fake. You know what I mean? So those are the ones that you don't really get a lot of that dishonesty with certain species of animals that have a lot of localities. But just understand that people in Indonesia, Central, South America, they got phones and stuff too. They know, they talk. I have people over there. They know, they talk to me. They know. And I'm like, oh yeah, bro. Yeah, right now, bro, people are looking for like halmaheras like crazy. But a halmahera is from an island, so it's not something that you can fake. But if I were to say, man, people are looking for Fac or Tamika or Tanameras or Oscabills, and they would go anywhere and grab some stuff. And yeah, okay, yeah, bro, I got Oscabills for you. And if you don't know, then you're gonna end up like a famous YouTube. Well, I guess he say he famous, but you're gonna end up like that guy saying that he had a bunch of stuff that his homie sold him, who knew that it wasn't that from the beginning. And now you're like, oh, then you're going to make yourself look like a fool. So the best thing to do in this situation, if you can afford to, one, go over there. If you can afford to, if you can't afford to, talk to people who have actually been over there and use your phones better than you're using them. You can do so much more on your phones for your animals. So that's what I'm going to say. Learn. Don't just, like I said, you ain't got to take my word for it. Do the work yourself, because you're going to find out like someone you thought may have been this, that, and the other. And sometimes those people don't even know, but they're just going to keep relaying that information. Find info, stack it, see how it compares. Mathematics, you see? So I hope that helps.
Yes, find the variables that work good to balance out your own equation. You don't have to.
You're being sold a locality, a name, more so than an animal. That's what's happening. So,
all right, Chris. Rain. I have so many things we didn't touch on, but we're going to have to get together again.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. What is the one last thing you want to tell us?
The one last thing, man, just
enrichment.
Enrichment. Be kind to each other. Save the trees. Trees are the things we need to breathe. Man, just be unapologetically yourself. You don't have to be rude to anybody. Just be yourself. Do your thing, and keep your eyes peeled, because it's going to get crazy out here in the next few years. And protect your animals, bro, because something is coming. And I keep trying to warn people, but they don't want to hear it. So one day I might give all of y'all a message and say, hey, man, you might want to pull all your stuff off social media. That's all.
Regulations. So many regulations we can't even imagine.
Yeah, man, just start working together and treat yourself better as well. Make sure you make time for yourself as well.
The aliens are coming, Morelia says.
But they need to hurry up, damn it.
Rain, thank you so much for being here with me today. And we're definitely going to have to hook up again. I really enjoyed it.
I
And
appreciate
Chris, you don't have to put me on after. I'll just say goodbye to everybody. And another thing I realized, I was thinking I didn't say hi to Tony when I was mentioning everybody's name earlier before our break. So thank you all for being here. I love you guys. Rain, I love you, man. You are such a cool guy with such a cool vibe. We really appreciate you.
Peace out, people.
Peace out, everybody. Good night. Thank you, Chris.
Under neon lights so cold they hum, shadows of scales where whispers come. A world of emeralds and tales untold, chasing the warmth in a world so cold. Happy basins, we rise and glow, charmed rose and stories the world should know. Emerald dreams in a twilight sky, together we thrive as the days go by. Amy speaks with a voice so kind,